As a youth pastor, something that I'm always thinking about, something that I'm always asking myself, is, are my youth kids growing? Maybe you guys don't think about this so much as a youth group, but as a youth pastor, I think about this all the time. Even as I talk with the staff or I talk about this with other youth pastors, we ask, how are your kids? How is your group? How's your congregation? Are your kids growing? And I think one of the things that I've learned is it may be really difficult to gauge growth. How do I know if I'm growing? How can you tell if your youth kids are growing? And I've learned that this may not be a 100% foolproof way of proving it, of gauging it, but one good indicator is your prayers. And it's not so much what you say, or it's not so much how long you pray, but it's your content and it's your attitude. Just because you say, well, I can pray for 2 hours and not be faded. Well, that's good, but what's your attitude and what are the things that are coming out of your heart? And I know some of you hate praying in public. Friday nights, we're getting ready for dinner, and I'll ask you to pray. Some of you squirm. You'd rather go run 10 miles than have to pray for like 3 people out loud, And I can think of 2 reasons for that. One, you don't like praying in public because you don't like revealing and being public with the deep secrets of your heart. You want to be honest with God, and so it's too deep, it's too honest, and you're too shy. Okay, to a certain extent, I can understand that. But I think another reason is because you don't know what to pray, and you don't know what to pray simply because there's nothing going on in your heart with God. Simply because God has been trying to teach you things, and you're simply not processing it. God is trying to teach you things, and you're like a brick wall, and therefore, there's nothing going on in your heart. Of course, you don't know what to pray. Besides, thank you for this day. I pray that the people that didn't come today would come next week and that we would be able to pay attention when Pastor Howard speaks. Amen, right? Besides those things, maybe you don't know what to pray for because there's nothing going on in your heart. Either way, I think prayer, honest prayer, is a good reflection of what's going on in our hearts. It's a good gauge of what we're processing with God, what we're learning with God, what is going on in our relationship with God. Do you follow me? Honest prayers reveal that. And now, okay, check this out. We're looking at Jesus' prayer. It's not a teaching. It's not a miracle. It's not this parable that he's teaching, but it's a prayer, a very deep, very meaningful, very honest prayer that Jesus himself is praying. All throughout John's gospel, we've been asking the same question. What did this passage reveal about Jesus? We've been talking about this idea of encountering Jesus. Who is Jesus? What better way to get to know Jesus than to know what's going on in his own heart? What better way to know Jesus than to look at this honest prayer that he's praying moments before his death? And so if you look at this prayer, the first thing Jesus prays for is himself. He says, Father, glorify me so that you would be glorified. And then he prays for his 12 disciples. And he even calls Judas the son of destruction. He prays for his disciples, and more specifically, he prays for their mission. He talks about this idea of how they're sent into the world. And then, check this out, he prays for us. The church, Canaan Church, coined, 2,000 years later, he prays for us. And what does he pray for? Unity. So that the world will know that we are sent from God. And so we're taking Jesus' prayer and we're looking at what this reveals about Jesus. And so let's look at the first thing. Go to verse 1. When Jesus had spoken these words, he lifted up his eyes to heaven and said, Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, that the Son may glorify you, since you have given him authority over all flesh to give eternal life to all whom you have given him. Now, in both this prayer and the Lord's Prayer, we say it every week when we close service, Our Father, who art in heaven. Jesus starts very intentionally with these prayers. And I'm going to even guess when Jesus goes by himself to the mountains, to a secluded area, and he prays, my guess is that he starts every prayer with Father. My Father. Our Father. This endearing term of Father, which I know we've said so many times that we don't even think about it, is a very, very intimate term. There's only one person in this life that you call Father, and that's your Father. Spiritually speaking, we have an eternal Father. This reveals something of Jesus' attitude. That even though Jesus is the second person of the Trinity, even though he has full Godhead, even though he's going to save the entire world by dying on the cross, even though he has all authority, he still goes to the Father and says, Abba, Father, Daddy, Appa, Abaji. And he goes to God and he calls him this deep, intimate term, Father. What does that reveal about his attitude? Isn't that so deep? And I know some of us may not have the most loving and most supportive and most understanding fathers. I can understand that. But what we can learn from Jesus here is that our Father in heaven is someone that we can go to and lay our burdens on. Our Father in heaven is someone that we can go to, not just bust out these theological prayers, but to simply say, God, Father, this is what's going on in my life. How do we know that? Go to verse 1. When Jesus had spoken these words, he lifted up his eyes to heaven, which is an ancient Jewish way of praying, lifting our eyes to heaven, and he says, Father. And now what does he say? The hour has come. You should know by now what that means. The hour has come. All throughout John's gospel, over and over, Jesus has been saying, the time has come. The hour. It's not my time yet. At the wedding, he goes to his mother and he says, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not yet come. He's with his brothers, and the brothers saying, why don't you go back to the temple if you think you're this God, if you think you're this Messiah? He says, my hour has not yet come. Every time Jesus refers to the hour or the time, what is he talking about? His death. And this is a very momentous, very significant period, this moment, because now Jesus isn't saying my time isn't come. He says, Father, the hour has come. Everything has been built up to this moment. His purpose, his mission, he goes to the Father. Dad, Father, it is time for me to die. It is time for me to die. Now, to put this into perspective, let's put ourselves into the shoes of Jesus, or rather, the sandals of Jesus. But let's put ourselves in his place. You know that one of your very trusted disciples, one of the 12, is going to betray you. You poured out your life and your heart, your ministry, your spirit into these people, and one of them decides that he's going to betray you for a few bucks. In just a few moments, in your darkest hour, another one of your disciples may not betray you, but is going to deny you 3 times. In just a few moments, you are going to be accused and tried of something that you didn't even do. You're completely sinless. You're completely innocent. You're betrayed, and people are pointing fingers at you for not doing any crime, any sin, and then you're going to die a most horrific death. What kind of prayers would you pray? You know what I would pray? I would pray, Father, would you change Judas's heart that he wouldn't betray me? Holy Spirit, show grace to him, rebuke him, do something to him that he wouldn't betray me. Father, change Peter's heart. Give him some courage, at least, that he wouldn't betray me in my darkest hour 3 times. Father, I don't want to go through the cross. I don't want to die a painful death. Is there some other way that I can save the world without having to go to the cross? What does Jesus say? Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, that the Son may glorify you. What is Jesus praying? It says, glorify your Son. He's talking about himself, but for what purpose? That the Father would be glorified. Jesus is not praying that his circumstances would change. Jesus is praying that he would get through the circumstances, that he would be able to endure. We can get that picture up there. A couple years ago, can you get that light for me? I was a groomsman for, you guys remember Pastor Lee? He's in the middle, shortest guy there with a mustache, Vietnamese guy. He asked me to be a groomsman. I thought, wow, what a great honor. And we're getting ready for the wedding, and we're getting fitted for the tux and everything. I'm on the far right, by the way. And the wedding of the weekend, it's in San Diego, and so we all drive down there. We get a hotel room. All the groomsmen cram into this hotel room. And it's the night before the wedding. We're tired from all the rehearsals and the dinners and all this stuff running around because weddings are just crazy. And the next morning, one of the guys, I won't say who, but one of the groomsmen, he gets up early. He's the first one, and so he jumps into the shower. And I'm getting to know these guys because I don't know them too well. And Lee, he's telling me about one of these guys, and he says, he's a really good guy. I've known him for years, and he considers him a prayer warrior. And I thought, that's intense. Like, what does that mean? Like, he takes out some spiritual sword and slays some spiritual dragon? I don't know. But I figured out what he meant by that. He's telling me that he loves prayer and he gets energized by prayer. I thought, okay, sounds spiritual, but okay. One of the guys, he gets up in the morning. He's the first one in the shower. And then he starts, singing these worship songs. And I'm in my bed. I'm thinking, oh, that's kind of cool. He's singing worship songs. And then he starts praying. Now, I'm not making fun of this guy. I know it's not kind of funny to you, but this is how he prayed in the shower. He says, marvelous God, so wonderful, unchanging, indescribable. God, I love you. All throughout his entire shower, he's saying these things. I'm like, I can't even sleep anymore. I'm like, is this guy for real? And then he gets out with his towel, and he's like, he's just like, getting ready. I'm just like looking at the guy. I'm like, dang, that's intense. And I found out that this guy, he wakes up early, prays for 2 hours. He goes to work or goes to class, whatever. He comes back, prays for another 2 hours. Eats dinner, does his thing, prays 2 hours before he sleeps. That's 6 hours of prayer every day. And when he talks about prayer, it's not like this, yeah, I'm this prayer warrior. But he says he really gets energized by it. I get energized by Monster energy drinks and Starbucks. This guy gets energized by praying to God, literally. He says when he doesn't pray, he gets tired. I get tired from praying. I pray for 30 minutes. Oh, Father, the hour has come. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know, maybe it's a spiritual gift, but the point I want to make is this guy depends on the Father for strength. I don't just mean moral strength, I mean physical strength. And he doesn't walk around with a halo over his head. He doesn't have this glow about him. He's a cool guy, he's a chill guy, down to earth. But he gets energized with prayer. And I think that is a very, very small fraction of the picture that we see of Jesus here when he says, Father, the hour has come. What do we know? What do we understand about Jesus' attitude in prayer? He is fully dependent on the Father. He doesn't pray that his circumstances would change. But he goes to the Father and just simply says, Father, the hour has come. Everything that you sent me here to do, to train my disciples, to die on the cross, to resurrect, it's come. And now, Father, you take the glory. It's a prayer of dependence. It's a prayer of submission. It's a prayer of intimacy. What does this reveal about Jesus? Jesus was fully dependent on the Father, and he pursued after God's glory. Let me ask you something. The next time you pray, just think about this. Every time you ask God for something, say this, for your glory. And see how that changes you. God, help me to prepare for this test for your glory. Help me, God, to love my parents more for your glory. That's prayer changing you. That's you going to the Father and submitting instead of saying, God, you need to change my life. And this is the picture we get of Jesus. He is fully dependent on the Father. Can we get that light? Thank you. Go to verse 13. But now I am coming to you, and these things I speak in the world, that they may have my joy fulfilled in themselves. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them, because they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. I do not ask you to take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, so I have sent them into the world. And for their sake I consecrate myself, that they also may be sanctified in truth. Jesus prays for the mission of the disciples. All throughout John's gospel, Jesus constantly talks about this idea of being sent into the world. A big theme throughout John's gospel has been light and darkness. Jesus is the light of the world. Over and over, John is referring and he's going back to this idea that there is a world and we are sent into the world. What does it mean to be a missionary, according to Jesus here? Jesus talks about this idea of sanctification. Sanctify them in the truth. Now, I just want to briefly share what this is. Sanctification is the process of becoming more like Jesus. Sanctification is not something we do on ourselves, but is the Holy Spirit working in us. Sanctification is something we willingly go to the Father for, but it's God who sanctifies us and changes us into the likeness of Christ. It means that you are different from the world. Sanctification means being more like Jesus in that he was holy. Holy denotes this idea of being set apart. So if you are being sanctified, you are becoming more like Jesus, that means you are becoming less like the world. And what does Jesus say? They are in the world, but that doesn't mean you're a part of the world. It means that when the world values this, you value something else. When the world values morality, you believe in the cross. When the world values riches, you value spiritual riches. When the world says you need to live for here and now and invest in the world, the gospel, sanctification, being more like Jesus says, you invest in heaven. You believe in an afterlife that you're going to spend the rest of eternity with Jesus in his kingdom. And that is what's most important in this life. This is what sanctification is. And it goes to the next point. What else does it mean to be missionary in this world? It's the idea of being sent. Let me explain this to you. Can we get that picture up there? Can you get the lights? Thanks. I don't talk about this much. I was in a band, and that's me. We're going to take some time with this, so get comfortable. That's me on the drums. That's Jason. I don't know if you can tell, but that's Sam. That's Victor. That's a monitor. We were practicing, we're making songs, and somehow we ended up getting this gig at this place called Hogue Bar Michaels. It's this bar in Newport Beach, Irvine area. And so I think this is our first show. If you can kind of look, I'm nervous. I don't know what is going on. I think we're sound checking or something like that. This is one of our first gigs. Can you get that next picture up there? So we played at this really cool place called Chain Reaction. Okay, that's Vic, that's Jace, that's Sam, and he's blocking me. That's me. And that's a bass amp. And Chain Reaction, by the way, it's this really, really cool venue in Anaheim, right off of Euclid. You guys aren't into K-pop and stuff like that, but if you're into the local rock scene and you're checking out up-and-coming bands, this is a great place. No Doubt played here. Thrice played here. And literally, it's not this big place, it's literally like the size of this room, where these great rock bands come out and they go through this little venue. Really, really cool place. Now, I'm sharing these pictures to kind of show you something. You go to these type of shows, you're not going to get, if you just take a look around, you're not going to get people looking like us, wearing preppy blue checkered shirts, wearing, Aeropostale and Abercrombie. You're not going to get people like that, okay? You're going to get people with full-on mohawks, full-on tattoos, cutoffs, people who smell like alcohol, people who smell like smoke. This is the type of people that you encounter at these places. That first place, Hoag Bar Michaels, was a bar. Why do people go to bars? They go to drink. Here's the next picture. This place, that's Jason, that's Victor, that's me, that's Sam, and that's a Taylor guitar. This was It's a Grind coffee shop. It's not an It's a Grind anymore, but it's that little coffee shop on the corner next to Yahoo Grill and Frostbites. You guys know what I'm talking about, right in Cypress? Yeah, that's it right there. It's a Grind. We play a little acoustic set. Not a very good set in my opinion, but it's cool. It's very cas. That's why we're wearing sandals and stuff like that. And then this last picture, we played at this place called The Alley. That's Vic. That's Jason. That's Sam. That's me. Dude, look at my rock star hair. Isn't that crazy? That's me. It's a place in Fullerton, next to Commonwealth and Harbor. Really cool venue. Now, I share these pictures with you because we were a Christian band, and we played hard rock songs, okay? And I know what you're used to is people coming up here very controlled with volume and everything, and Justin's a great drummer, and Jerome's a great drummer, Randy's a great drummer. They play very controlled. When I go up and I play, literally, I play as hard as I can. I don't think any of you have really seen me wail at drums. I play so hard that after 3 songs, literally, sometimes I can't even hold my sticks because my veins are just shot. That's probably too hard. But that's how hard we played. And we played full-on rock songs. We blasted it. And at Hoag Bar Michaels, we got this first gig. It was this bar in Newport Beach. I'd never been there. And I go to my mom. I said, Mom, she was never really 100% supportive of the band. I said, Mom, we got our first gig. She said, oh, so. And I'm thinking, no, it's a first gig. We have to sell tickets. And she says, okay, where is it? I said, it's this place called Hoag Bar Michaels. It's a bar in Irvine. She goes, what? It's a bar? I was like, yeah. And she says, why are you guys playing at a bar? And I'm glad she asked me that because I had to think about it. And she didn't like it. She didn't like the idea that we're a Christian band going to this bar where people get drunk and do all sorts of things, and we're playing. She says, aren't you a Christian band? What are you doing there? And I had to explain to her. I had to sit down and explain to her, maybe it's hard for you to understand, okay? But we can't go into places like that and play, let everything that has breath praise the Lord, because then we're not going to get the time of day. We come up with good rock lyrics, good licks, good drum beats. We play loud and we blast it and we send a Christian worldview message to them. Do we evangelize after? No. But how do you reach an unchurched culture? How do you reach a group of people that see nerdy Christians, that's their point of view for the church? How do you reach a people in that kind of scene? And I think that's what Jesus is talking about here. You are sent into the world and you are missionaries. And if you are too comfortable in this life, something is wrong. And if you think that your scene is only church, Canaan church, Korean American, living your comfortable life, and you have no sense of mission in your life, then you are negating the prayer of Jesus. You are not of the world, but you are sent into the world. And I love short-term missions. I love going to places like Guatemala, Mexico, but one of the things I don't like is people get fired up and they get passionate for Jesus. They start sacrificing money and sleep and hanging out with friends, and they do all these things for missions. 2 weeks later, after the mission trip is over, nothing has changed. Why do we not treat Mexico missions like it's every day? Why do we not treat every day with urgency and desperation, waking up and saying, the world needs Jesus? This is the prayer of Jesus. And if we get so caught up in the Christianese culture We get so caught up in believing that we're okay, that we're comfortable. What are we doing? What does this reveal about Jesus? Jesus has a love for the world. He has a love, a big heart, a love for the world, that they would come to know the Father. Jesus has a passion to evangelize the world. And if we are to be disciples of Christ, we are to adopt that kind of value in our lives. Go to verse 20. I do not ask for these only, but also for those who believe in me through their word, that they may all be one, just as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. The glory that you have given me, I have given to them, that they may be one even as we are one, I in them and you in me, that they may become perfectly one, so that the world may know that you sent me and loved them even as you loved me. What does Jesus pray for here? He prays for the unity of the disciples, the unity of us. He prays that he would be glorified so that the Father would be glorified. He prays for the mission of the disciples, and then he prays for us, the future church, the unity of the disciples. Now, what does unity mean according to this passage? Bear with me. I know we're going kind of long. Bear with me. Jesus prays that we would be one as he is one with the Father. So what is Jesus saying? I pray that future disciples, the future church, Canaan Church, Coin, would be unified. How? What is our model and example of unity? Jesus and the Father and the Spirit in Jesus. Ever since the beginning of all beginnings, when God just existed, he existed with the Son. He existed as the Father. He existed with the Spirit. They just perfectly existed harmoniously. It's this perfect example, perfect picture of community, of a loving relationship, of servitude, of submission, of authority, everything perfectly rolled into one. This is the Trinity. And how do we know that Jesus was so connected to the Father? In every other prayer in the Gospels, when Jesus prays, he says, Father. But when Jesus is crucified, and it says, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, his Father, why have you forsaken me? He doesn't say, Father. He just says, why have you forsaken me? Because it was at that moment when Jesus was torn from the perfect relationship of the Father. So when we think of unity, it's not we listen to the same music, wear the same clothes, talk the same lingo, have the same kind of culture, but it is deeper than that. How many of you are doing Father's Day tonight? Okay. I'm having dinner with my family, and I have my aunt and uncle over, and I decided that I'm going to cook dinner. And so I went to Costco, bought a bunch of filet mignons. Now, I enjoy cooking. It's something that I've been enjoying more and more. One of the things I realized about cooking and taste is that good food, when you eat it, it's not just the sheer taste on your tongue, but it's the aroma of it. Taste has a lot to do with what you smell. Now, when I cook tonight, I'm not going to cook and be like, oh, I hope they enjoy the smell of it. Right? Now, look at this picture. You tell me, okay? Doesn't that look just dang good? Man, that looks good. Now, if I'm going to cook something like this, right, and I serve it on a plate, you're not going to be like, oh, the smell is so good. Thank you. Bye. I cook so that they can eat the food. That's the purpose of it, right? I'm going to slave over the pan. I'm going to slave over the oven so that these people can enjoy the food. Now, the aroma of it, the smell of it, they are byproducts of the cooking. They are natural byproducts of the cooking. They naturally happen when my purpose is to cook something like this. Unity is not something that we pursue. Unity is not a destination. Unity is a byproduct. It's a natural response, a natural byproduct of what? When we pursue Jesus. What unifies us as a church? It's not that we pursue each other. It's not that we pursue the world, but that we pursue Jesus. When you pursue Jesus, what that means is you pursue his values. You pursue what he stood for. You pursue everything that the cross represented. When Jesus teaches and he lives about loving and serving to the point where he can wash the feet of his own betrayer, then that means you take and you adopt those values and you say, I'm going to love and I'm going to serve. When you pursue Jesus, when you pursue loving Jesus and doing what he did and loving what he did, you have no time to love and serve yourself. And I'm going to be very honest with us. If a non-Christian were to come to our church and sit in service or sit at Logos or praise night or whatever, is that non-Christian going to look at us and say, there's something divine, there's something spiritual that unites them? Maybe a little bit. But I'll be very honest with you, people, we are so selfish. We are a really selfish group. I think some of us come to church thinking that we're entitled to something. I think some of us come to church thinking, of course I'm going to be fed on a Friday night. Of course Pastor Howard is going to preach a sermon. Of course I'm going to go to small group and get my feeding and get my community. How many of you come on a Friday night and not even once thank the parents for providing food? You know how hard it is to work 9 to 5 and then come to church and then prepare food for 50 people and then go home? How many of you thank them, even just once? How many of you thank your small group leaders for all the time, all the money, all the food they spent on you, all the time driving you around, going to your graduations, going to your shows, going to your concerts? How many of you just thank them? Thank you for the sacrifice you made for investing in me. All the times that you called me, all the times you Facebook messaged me, everything that they did. And not taking a single dollar from church. And the reason I say we are selfish is because your condition is a reflection of me. And the reason I say we are selfish is because we are a community. And as soon as we start singling out issues and problems and saying that's their problem and not mine, something is wrong. If there is something wrong in this youth group, it is your fault, it is my fault, it is our condition. We carry the load. Don't point the finger, but just say, we need to change something. What breaks down unity in the church? What breaks down the community? I'll be honest, I'm going to vent a little bit. I hate it when people come to church, they're hanging out with people, and they put on earphones. You know what that does? That implies you are not good enough for my time. I'd rather listen to my music. I hate it when people are eating and they pull out their phone and start playing games. You know what that implies? My game here that I spent a whole $1 on is more important than interacting with you, even though I only see you twice a week. You don't know that. And I'll be honest with you guys, I've been there before, and I'm not saying it's your fault necessarily, but teenagers are the most selfish people on the planet. You just are. Right now, it's just part of your condition of teenageness. It is almost impossible for you to think outside of yourself. I'm not saying it's your fault. I was selfish too. And there are 30, 40-year-olds who are still living teenage lives. But I challenge you, I exhort you, I implore you to think outside of yourself. That when you are here at Canaan Church, you think about other people and not yourself. I guarantee you, things will change. I don't have to tell you, go and welcome people. You just do it. I don't have to tell you, go encourage that person because they just lost someone in their family. You just do it. I don't tell you to pray for each other in your small groups. You just do it. This is the kind of unity and community that Jesus is talking about. And I don't preach to you, I preach to myself. If all you think about is yourself in this church, why are you here? The unity of the church is modeled after the unity of the Son and the Father. Now let me tell you this. Jesus, who has all authority, he says here, you have given me authority over the flesh, Matthew 28, he says, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Jesus, who has all authority, has the right to rule the earth. What does he do? God, glorify me that you would be glorified. Glorify me so that you would be glorified. That is the kind of unity that we are to have, that we pursue the glory of the Father. When we pursue Jesus and we pursue the glory of the Father, that's when the world will see there is something different about that church and those people. It is not the clothes they wear, it's not the video games they play, it's not the music they listen to. It is something deeper than the flesh. People of God, this is the prayer of Jesus. This reveals what's in Jesus' heart.